The morning light crept through the lace curtains as I stirred my tea, watching the steam swirl like fading memories. My granddaughter Ava was getting married. Just thinking of her in a white gown made my heart swell, until I saw the envelope on the table. It wasn't the soft ivory invitation I expected. It was plain, almost cold. Inside, her handwriting, elegant but distant, invited me to her celebration of love. No mention of family. No warmth. Still I smiled. She's just busy, I told myself. After all, I helped raise her when her parents worked long hours. I packed her lunches, stitched her dresses, and whispered bedtime stories when thunder scared her. How could she ever forget that? That evening I called her. Her voice came through the phone, bright and distracted. "Oh, Grandma. Yeah, everything's just crazy right now. Wedding planning is exhausting." I chuckled softly. "I can imagine, dear. Just remember to take care of yourself. And tell me what I can do to help." There was silence. Then, "Actually, Grandma, there's one thing. About the wedding video." My heart sank before she even finished. "I talked to the videographer. We're going for a kind of modern aesthetic. Clean, young, minimal. So, maybe you could sit out of the main shots." Froze. "Sit out?" She laughed awkwardly. "It's just, I don't want it to look too old-fashioned. You have your walker now and—" Her words blurred. My walker. Wait. My existence. A flaw in her perfect little fairy tale. I said nothing. Only the faint sound of her fiancé laughing in the background filled the silence. When she hung up, I sat for a long time, staring at my trembling hands. 4 years I'd saved for her wedding, every dollar from my small pension, tucked away for her happiness. And now I was just a ruin to her vibe. That night I couldn't sleep. The same question echoed again and again. When did love turn into inconvenience? By morning I'd made a decision. If I was too old to be part of her aesthetic, then maybe I was too old to fund it too. I opened my notebook, turned to the page labeled Ava's Wedding Fund, and with one slow stroke drew a line across it. She wanted her picture-perfect wedding. She could pay for it herself. The next morning, sunlight filled my kitchen, but it felt dim inside me. My tea had gone cold before I even remembered to drink it. I stared at the wedding invitation again. The one that had once made me proud, now just a cruel reminder of my place in her world. I wasn't angry yet, just hollow. The kind of emptiness that comes when someone you love deeply forgets what love even means. Ava called again that afternoon. "Grandma, did you get the flowers I sent? Aren't they gorgeous?" "Yes, dear," I said softly. They were lilies, the kind her mother, my late daughter, had loved. The irony stung. "I wanted you to feel included, even if you're not in the main video shots," she added quickly, her voice chirpy but strained. Forced a laugh. "Of course, sweetheart. I understand." She didn't notice the tremor in my voice. She was too caught up in her fairy tale. Photographers, dresses, a venue by the ocean. After the call ended, I sat back, my heart aching. I had planned to give her $40,000. My life savings. I wanted her to start her marriage with comfort, not debt. But now, every dollar I'd saved suddenly felt like a piece of me she didn't deserve anymore. Over the next week, Ava and her fiancé, Tyler, visited to discuss wedding logistics. I prepared their favorite lemon cake just like old times. They arrived with bright smiles, the kind that mask impatience. "Grandma, the venue needs a deposit soon," Ava said, avoiding my eyes. Tyler added quickly, "We're counting on your gift, of course." I smiled politely. "Of course, dear. But I've been thinking." Both their smiles faltered. "I might need that money after all. The doctor says my arthritis is getting worse. Home care isn't cheap." Ava's face tightened. "But Grandma, we already told everyone about the venue. You said you wanted to do this for me." "I did," I said, stirring my tea calmly, "when I felt like I was truly part of your happiness. But now, I think you want a version of life I don't fit into." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Ava's eyes grew cold. "You're overreacting," she said sharply. "It's just a video. You're still invited, aren't you?" That sentence, "you're still invited," sliced deeper than any insult. I smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile she remembered from childhood. This one was quiet, sharp, and final. "Of course, dear," I said sweetly. "I'll be there." They left soon after, frustrated that I hadn't confirmed the money. As their car disappeared down the street, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. My hands trembled, not from age but from restraint. That night, I opened my laptop and began searching for vacation spots. If I wasn't welcome in her fairy tale, I'd make one of my own. I found a small coastal town in Italy, a place my late husband had always wanted to visit. A peaceful retreat overlooking the ocean, filled with the scent of citrus and sea air. I smiled for the first time in days. By the end of the night, I had booked my flight, reserved my stay, and wired a deposit, all from the same account labeled Ava's Wedding Fund. She didn't want me in her wedding video. Fine. She wouldn't find me in her wedding budget either. And as I shut down my computer, I whispered softly, "Enjoy your perfect day, my dear. I'll enjoy mine too, just on the other side of the world." The day Ava found out about the money was supposed to be her final planning day. I knew because she had posted it all over social media. Pictures of her and Tyler holding champagne, the caption reading, "Almost there." Couldn't have done it without Grandma Two Hearts. Oh, the irony. That morning I received a call, not from Ava, but from the venue coordinator. "Mrs. Miller," the woman said politely, "I'm calling to confirm the cancellation of the wedding reservation." I took a sip of tea and smiled faintly. "Yes, that's correct." There was a pause. "Would you like the refund sent to your account?" "Please do." When I hung up, I stared at the quiet hum of my old refrigerator. My heart wasn't pounding, my hands weren't shaking. I felt something much stronger, peace. Later that afternoon, my phone began to ring non-stop. I knew it was coming. Ava's name flashed on the screen. "Grandma! What did you do?" Her voice cracked through the receiver, full of disbelief and fury. "I cancelled the booking," I said simply. "You didn't need my help, remember?" "What?" she shrieked. "You can't just. We already announced it. We have guests flying in, deposits made. How could you do this?" "How could I?" I repeated softly. "How could you, Ava? You told me I ruined your vibe. You made me feel like a stranger in my own family. So tell me, Why would I pay to stand in the background of your perfect little movie? There was a silence so deep I could hear her breathing through the phone. Then she whispered, "I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it, sweetheart?" asked gently. "Because I spent months knitting you a shawl for that day. I picked the fabric for your veil. I even chose the song your mother danced to at her wedding. But none of that fit your aesthetic, did it?" She said nothing. She sighed. "Ava, love isn't a photo. It's messy, wrinkled, real. You can't edit out the people who built your world just because they don't match your color palette." Her voice cracked. "Grandma, we can fix this. Please just send the money again." But I had already made my decision. "I'm sorry, dear," I said softly. "That money's gone. I spent it on something that finally includes me." "What do you mean?" Smiled. "A trip to Italy, the Amalfi Coast. Your grandpa always wanted to go, and now I'm going. I figured if I'm too old to fit into your wedding, maybe I can fit somewhere the sun still welcomes me." The silence turned cold. Then Ava hung up. I sat there for a moment, letting the ache of it all wash through me. The love, the disappointment, the finality. Then, for the first time in years, I laughed, a quiet, trembling laugh of freedom. That evening, as the sun set, I began packing. My old suitcase creaked open, smelling faintly of cedar and memories. I folded in a few dresses, my knitting kit, and my late husband's photo. The next morning I'd be on a plane to Italy. No wedding, no tears, no apologies, just me. And a world waiting to remind me that life doesn't end when people stop appreciating you. It begins when you start appreciating yourself. Citrus and sea air. I smiled for the first time in days. By the end of the night, I had booked my flight, reserved my stay, and wired a deposit, all from the same account labeled Ava's Wedding Fund. She didn't want me in her wedding video. Fine. She wouldn't find me in her wedding budget either. And as I shut down my computer, I whispered softly, "Enjoy your perfect day, my dear. I'll enjoy mine too, just on the other side of the world." The salty wind of the Amalfi Coast kissed my cheeks as I stepped out of the taxi. The sun shimmered off the water like molten gold, and the rhythmic sound of waves filled the air. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's grandmother, mother, or caretaker. I was just me, Eleanor. The hotel was small, perched on a cliffside draped with bougainvillea and olive trees. The owner, a kind man named Luca, helped me with my bags. "You travel alone, signora?" he asked with a smile. He nodded. "Just me. It's been a long time coming." He smiled knowingly. "Sometimes the best company we can keep is our own heart." His words lingered as I unpacked. My room had a view of the sea, blue stretching endlessly into the horizon. I opened the balcony doors, let the warm air fill my lungs, and felt something shift inside me. That night, I dined on pasta al limone, sipping a glass of white wine while the sun sank into the sea. Around me, laughter, music, and life swirled, and for the first time I didn't feel out of place. I wasn't an inconvenience. I wasn't too old. I was simply living. But even as I savored the moment, my mind drifted to Ava, to her face when I refused the money, to the silence that followed. I wondered if she regretted it, if she even noticed I was gone. Days passed in peace. Mornings were spent walking along the shore, afternoons reading by the balcony, and evenings watching the sun melt into the waves. I sketched again, something I hadn't done since my husband died. I even started talking to other travelers. One afternoon, as I painted the sea, Luca approached, holding my phone. "Signora," he said gently, "you have many missed calls." I took it, hesitating. The screen flashed with messages, all from Ava. My chest tightened. Open the first one. "Ava, Grandma, please call me." Ava. I didn't know the deposit was cancelled until the venue called. Everyone's asking questions. Tyler's furious. "Ava, I'm sorry, okay? Maybe I overreacted. I just wanted everything perfect." Ava. "But now everything's falling apart." There were over 20 messages. The last one was just 4 words. "Ava, I miss you, Grandma." My eyes blurred with tears. The waves outside seemed to echo her voice. Distant, uncertain, but real. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I walked down to the beach. The sand was warm beneath my feet, and the sea whispered softly against the shore. As the tide washed over my ankles, I whispered, "Maybe this is what love looks like when it grows up. Not control, not silence, but distance that teaches." That night I finally replied, "Ava, I'm glad you reached out. Sometimes we only learn the value of something once we lose it. I didn't cancel your wedding to hurt you. I did it because I had to remember what my life was worth too." Then, after a pause, I added, I love you, but I won't come running this time. When you're ready to see me as a person, not a background prop, you'll know where to find me." I set the phone down and looked at the stars stretching endlessly above the sea. For the first time in a long time I felt peace. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally let go. The morning of Ava's wedding dawned bright and flawless, at least on the surface. Photos from her bridesmaids flooded social media. Pastel dresses, champagne flutes, perfectly curled hair. Everything she'd dreamed of, except for one small, devastating truth. There was no venue, no flowers, and soon no wedding at all. Back in Italy, I was sipping coffee on a balcony overlooking the sea when my phone buzzed again. I hesitated before checking, half dreading, half expecting what I might find. It was a message from Tyler. "Tyler, I don't know what happened between you and Ava, but she's a wreck. The venue cancelled everything. Half our guests are asking for refunds. She won't even come out of her room." I set the phone down gently. A part of me ached for her. My little girl who once danced barefoot in my garden, her curls bouncing in the wind. But another part of me knew this was the only way she would ever understand. Ava had built her wedding on perfection, not love. On appearances, not people. And now the facade had finally cracked. Later that evening, while the sky outside turned orange and violet, another message appeared. This time from Ava herself. "Ava, Grandma, I messed up. Everyone's mad. Tyler says maybe we should just elope. I feel like I ruined everything. Ava, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted everything to look beautiful, and I thought maybe you'd understand." I stared at her words for a long time. Then I typed slowly, letting each word weigh heavy with truth. Ava, beauty isn't in how things look. It's in how people feel when they're together. You pushed away the one person who wanted nothing but your happiness. You traded love for lighting and connection for control. Me, I still love you, but I can't fix what you broke. You'll have to do that yourself." She didn't reply. Not that night. Not for several more days. Instead, I learned through a cousin's Facebook post that Ava and Tyler had called off the big celebration altogether. Some said it was financial stress. Others whispered that Tyler had grown distant after the fallout. But I didn't need gossip to know the truth. The wedding fell apart the moment love turned into a performance. Still, there was no joy in being right. Only a quiet sadness, the kind that sits in your chest and hums softly like an old song. That evening I walked to the beach again. Children played in the sand, couples strolled hand in hand, and the world moved on as if nothing had ever gone wrong. The sky stretched endlessly, pink fading into indigo, and I whispered to the waves, "Sometimes we lose people not to distance, but to the mirrors they build around themselves." When I turned back toward my hotel, a small figure caught my eye. A young woman with a bouquet of white lilies, standing near the boardwalk. Her face reminded me of someone I once knew, full of dreams and apologies left unspoken. For a moment I imagined Ava there, running to me, crying, saying sorry. But it wasn't her. And maybe that was the universe's way of reminding me. Closure doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it's what we give ourselves. That night, as I closed the balcony doors and the sea breeze brushed my face, I realized something profound. Revenge had never been the goal. Redemption was. And slowly, without fanfare or forgiveness, I was finding mine. It was my last evening in Italy. The sun dipped low behind the cliffs, painting the sky in soft gold and deep rose. The sea whispered below my balcony, calm and eternal. I had spent weeks learning to breathe again, to exist without bitterness, without the weight of disappointment. Then, just as I was folding the last of my clothes into the suitcase, my phone began to ring. The name on the screen made my hands freeze. Ava. I hesitated before answering. The sea breeze drifted through the curtains, and for a moment I thought of ignoring it. But something deep inside whispered, "Pick up." "Hello." My voice trembled slightly. There was silence. Then a sound I hadn't heard in years. A small, broken sob. "Grandma." Her voice cracked. "It's me. Please don't hang up." I sat down slowly, heart tightening. "I'm here, sweetheart." More sniffles. I didn't know what I was doing. "The wedding's off. Tyler and we argued. He said I cared more about how things looked than how they felt. And maybe he's right." I listened quietly, letting her speak. Sometimes silence is the kindest response. "I kept thinking about what you said," she continued softly. "About how love isn't supposed to be perfect. About how I pushed you away because I was scared people would see me differently. I thought, if everything looked beautiful, maybe I'd be beautiful too." My eyes stung. I had waited for this. Not the apology itself, but the understanding behind it. "Oh, Ava," I said gently, "you've always been beautiful. But life isn't an edited picture, sweetheart. It's messy. Real love always is." "I know," she whispered. "I just wish I'd realized it before I lost everything." I smiled sadly. "You haven't lost everything, my dear. You've just started seeing things clearly." There was a pause, then her voice broke again. "Grandma, can I come see you?" The question hung in the air, trembling and fragile. I looked out at the sea, the waves catching the last golden light. "You can," I said softly. "But not to ask for forgiveness. Come to share a meal, a story, a walk by the water. Come because you want to know me again, not just the grandmother in your childhood memories, but the woman I still am." She cried harder this time, quiet, relieved tears. "I promise. I just want to see you. To make it right." "I'll be here," I said, my own tears spilling now. "Whenever you're ready." When the call ended, I didn't feel anger or pride, just peace. Real deep peace. Few days later, a new message arrived. A photo of Ava at the airport, holding a single suitcase and a bouquet of white lilies. My heart clenched. Under it she'd written, "For Grandma. For all the weddings we missed and all the love we still have left." I closed my eyes, whispering to the wind, "You found your way, my girl." The next morning, as I walked along the shore waiting for her flight to land, I thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the silence, the lesson. Love, I realized, isn't about being included in someone's picture. It's about being remembered in their heart. And sometimes the only way to teach that lesson is to let them lose the frame before they truly see the picture. The day Ava returned was wrapped in soft rain. The sky hung low and gray, but there was something cleansing about it, like the world itself wanted to wash away the pain between us. I waited at the small airport near the coast, the scent of wet earth and sea salt drifting through the open doors. When she appeared at the exit, I almost didn't recognize her at first. Gone was the polished, picture-perfect young woman who lived for filtered photos and approval. In her place stood someone raw, vulnerable, real. Her hair was loose, her face makeup-free, her eyes swollen from tears, but there was a gentleness there I hadn't seen since she was a little girl. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't speak. I simply opened my arms, and she ran into them. The hug was long, long enough to fill every empty space that silence had carved between us. Her tears soaked into my cardigan, and I let mine fall too. We didn't need words right away. The heart speaks a language older than language itself. When we finally pulled apart, she looked down shyly. "You smell like cinnamon and old books," she said with a shaky laugh. "And you smell like rain," I smiled. "That's a good sign." She laughed softly, but her eyes were filled with guilt. "I don't deserve to be here after what I said, after what I did." I cupped her cheek. "You made mistakes, Ava. We all do. What matters is you came back. Not because you had to, but because you wanted to." We drove home in quiet reflection, the rain tapping on the car roof like an old lullaby. I'd rented a small cottage overlooking the sea. Inside, it smelled of baked bread and chamomile tea. I poured her a cup, just the way she liked it as a child, with too much honey. As she held the warm cup between her hands, her eyes roamed the room. "You've been living here all this time." "Yes," I said softly. "It's peaceful. The sea listens better than people sometimes." Her lips curved faintly. "I bet it never tells you you've ruined the vibe." I laughed quietly. "No, it just crashes louder when I'm angry." The mood softened, and we both smiled. For a while we sat there, listening to the storm outside and the slow hum of forgiveness building between us. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. Grandma, I saw the venue, the decorations, the guests. Everything was so empty without you. I didn't respond, just watched her as she stared into her tea. I realized something, she went on. You weren't ruining the vibe. You were the heart of it. Without you, it was just a performance. I thought I wanted a perfect wedding, but all I really wanted was to prove I was enough. Tears welled in her eyes again. And I am. Because of you. For a moment I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight with pride, sadness, and love all mixed together. You are enough, my darling. You always have been. We talked for hours that night. About her childhood, about her fears, about love and mistakes, and all the little moments that built the woman she'd become. When she finally fell asleep on the couch, I watched her. My granddaughter, the girl who once pushed me away. And I realized something beautiful. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means remembering and loving anyway. Outside, the storm had ended. The sky began to clear, and faint moonlight spilled through the window. For the first time in a long while, I felt whole. The next morning began quietly. The storm had passed, and soft sunlight filtered through the gauzy curtains. I could hear the distant rush of waves and the gentle clinking of dishes as Ava helped herself to breakfast. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. There was laughter again, the sound of scrambled eggs sizzling, the scent of coffee filling the air. I wanted to stay in that moment forever. Just the two of us rebuilding what time and pride had nearly destroyed. But life, as I've learned, never lets you linger too long in peace. It happened around mid-morning. A sharp knock on the door broke the calm. Ava frowned, wiping her hands on a towel. Are you expecting someone, Grandma? No, I said, heart tightening. No one knows we're here. She went to the door before I could stop her. When it opened, the world seemed to tilt just slightly. Standing there, soaked in sunlight and arrogance, was Ethan, her husband. I hadn't seen him since the wedding incident, the day I refused to attend, the day he told Ava I was too dramatic for a modern family. Now he stood there in his expensive jacket, holding a bouquet of wilted flowers and a face painted with fake regret. Ava, he began softly, I've been looking everywhere for you. Ava's shoulders stiffened. Why? He sighed, stepping closer. Because I miss you. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said those things about your grandmother. Or about you. I could feel the tension radiating from her. She wasn't the same girl who had run from confrontation. There was steel in her now, quiet but sharp. Ethan, she said, voice calm but trembling. You didn't just say things. You meant them. You made me choose between you and the only person who ever stood by me. He flinched. I was angry. You embarrassed me, Ava. You walked out in front of everyone. Because you humiliated my grandmother, she snapped. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. You wanted a perfect wife who looked good in pictures, not a real partner. You treated me like another accessory. The silence that followed was heavier than any storm. I stood quietly watching, my heart both aching and swelling. My granddaughter, once so eager to please, so desperate to be accepted, was standing her ground. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. I just want to make things right, he murmured. Please, Ava, let's go home. She stared at him for a long time. Then to my surprise she smiled sadly. "You're right about one thing," she said. "It's time to go home. But not with you." He blinked confused. "I sold the apartment," she continued. "And I cancelled our joint accounts. You wanted independence, right? Well, now I have it. And you? You can go be the perfect husband to your mirror." His expression hardened. "You'll regret this." Ava laughed, a low, quiet, fearless laugh. "Maybe. But I'd rather regret freedom than live in your cage again." She closed the door slowly, gently, almost kindly. For a long time after, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the steady beat of waves outside and the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Then she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "I finally understand, Grandma," she whispered. "What strength really means." I reached for her hand. "It's not about fighting others, my love. It's about standing tall even when your heart is breaking." Outside, sunlight poured across the sea, bright and unflinching. And for the first time, Ava didn't look like a girl anymore. She looked like a woman who had survived, who had reclaimed her story. A few weeks passed after Ethan's visit. The rhythm of our days slowly found balance again. Morning walks along the beach, late-night talks over tea, laughter echoing softly in a house that had once known only silence. For the first time in years, Ava looked free. But peace, as I've learned, is often the calm before another storm. Started with the phone calls. Unknown numbers. Silent voices. Then came the emails. Cold, professional messages claiming Ava had unpaid debts, that her name was tied to a pending investigation. First we thought it was a mistake. But deep down I knew better. Ethan wasn't done. One afternoon, while I was watering the garden, Ava burst out of the house, shaking. "He froze my account," she said, voice breaking. "All my savings gone." I set the watering can down slowly. "What do you mean gone?" "He moved the money before I could transfer it. Everything I earned. Everything I worked for, he took it." She covered her face. "He's punishing me, Grandma." Anger rose in me, the kind of quiet, steady fury that only age can temper. I'd lived long enough to know men like Ethan. Entitled, manipulative. The type who couldn't stand losing control. But I also knew something else. He underestimated the power of a woman who had nothing left to lose. That evening I sat by the window, watching the tide roll in, and made a decision I never thought I'd make again. I opened my old wooden box, the one that held letters, bank papers, and a deed I hadn't touched in years. Ava watched me carefully. "What's that?" "Your grandfather's business shares," I said. "And the savings I never told anyone about." I handed her the envelope. "He thinks he took your future. Let's show him he took nothing that mattered." Her eyes widened. "Grandma, I can't." "You can. Because strength isn't just surviving, it's fighting back with dignity." Over the next few days, I helped Ava contact a lawyer, an old friend from my late husband's days. Together, they began the process of reclaiming her finances, gathering evidence, and filing for a legal separation that would leave Ethan with nothing but his own reflection. But revenge wasn't our goal. Freedom was. Ethan, of course, didn't see it that way. He called, he shouted, he threatened. "You think you can ruin me?" he snarled over the phone one night. You'll regret this. Ava's voice didn't tremble when she replied. No, Ethan. I regret ever believing you could love anyone but yourself. Then she hung up. I watched her, pride swelling in my chest. She wasn't the timid granddaughter who once feared confrontation. She had become a woman with her own spine, her own voice, and her own fire. A week later, a letter arrived from the court. Temporary restraining order granted. Ethan's attempt to seize her property had failed. The accounts were being unfrozen. Ava stood on the porch, holding that letter, and I saw something beautiful in her eyes. Relief, yes, but also forgiveness. Not for Ethan, but for herself. She turned to me and smiled faintly. You were right, Grandma. Sometimes we have to lose everything to finally find ourselves. I squeezed her hand. And sometimes, I whispered, we have to face evil just to see how much light we still carry. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sea shimmered gold, calm, eternal, and endlessly forgiving. For the first time in a long while I felt peace. True peace. There's a moment in every storm when the wind shifts. Not because it's over, but because something inside you changes. That moment came for me the morning I found Ethan sitting outside our gate, disheveled and broken, holding a single suitcase and a look of defeat. Ava froze when she saw him. What are you doing here? He stood slowly, brushing dirt from his coat. I lost everything, he said. My company, my friends. Everyone turned their back on me. His voice trembled, not with sorrow, but with the shock of a man who finally met his own consequences. I don't have anywhere else to go. For a second, I saw Ava's compassion flicker. That soft heart she always tried to hide behind her newfound strength. But then her jaw tightened. I'm sorry, Ethan, she said calmly. But you made your choices. He laughed bitterly. And you think you're better than me? You wouldn't even have a place to live without her. He pointed at me, his words sharp and venomous. She's probably been whispering poison into your ear, turning you against me. I stepped forward then, not as a frail old woman, but as the matriarch of my family. My voice was steady, my heart clear. No, Ethan, I said. I didn't turn her against you. You did that all on your own. His face twisted in anger. You ruined her life. I saved her life, I interrupted. From a man who mistook control for love. He opened his mouth again, but I didn't let him speak. Do you know what your problem is, Ethan? You think age makes a person irrelevant. You think wisdom fades when beauty does. But here's what you never understood. The older you get, the quieter your revenge becomes. He looked confused, almost fearful. What are you talking about? I smiled faintly. I'm talking about what happens next. That was when the sound of a car pulling up broke the silence. A silver sedan stopped at the curb, and out stepped a woman in a crisp suit. Ava's lawyer. Mr. Reed, she said formally, the court has processed your settlement. You've been ordered to pay back all funds you transferred from Mrs. Reed's account, as well as cover damages for emotional distress and defamation. You'll also vacate the shared property immediately. Ethan's mouth fell open. This is ridiculous. No, I said gently. This is justice. You tried to destroy her peace. Now she's reclaiming it, legally and gracefully. He turned to Ava, desperation flooding his eyes. Ava, please. Don't do this. We can fix it. Ava's voice was soft, but resolute. There's nothing left to fix, Ethan. You taught me what love isn't. And for that, I'm finally free. He didn't say another word. He just stood there, silent and small, as the lawyer handed him the papers and walked away. As his car disappeared down the road, the air felt lighter. The storm was over. That evening, Ava and I sat on the porch again, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you, Grandma, for everything." I smiled, brushing her hair back gently. "You don't need to thank me, my dear. Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Never forget your worth. Not when someone else fails to see it. And never mistake silence for weakness." She nodded, eyes glistening. As the last light faded from the sky, I looked out toward the horizon, calm, endless, and bright. I had spent so many years believing my age made me invisible. But now I knew the truth. The older you grow, the more dangerous your silence becomes, because it carries every lesson, every heartbreak, and every quiet victory. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living well enough that they have to watch you do it. Sparkle's final line, for video ending. If you think this story was powerful, wait until you hear what happened when my old friend betrayed me after 30 years of trust.